So, I mean, back in the day when you're doing these big events, I mean, obviously talking about quantum physics and NLP, and there's different sciences, and we'll kind of, circle back around to that. But I got to ask you, man, what the fuck do you think's going on in the world?
Wish I knew.
Yeah, but I mean, you might have a different.
Your other guests have an answer to that?
Yeah, I mean, I got my own thoughts and theories, but
Right.
I'm also very curious to what other people's experiences are. I'm not, I'm very careful to not align myself to any one truth of what I think is happening.
Sure.
And I'm very curious about what other people's perspectives are, especially somebody like yourself who's, a bit of a visionary and, very well rounded in, seeing people's patterns and understanding mindsets and manipulation, and that kind of thing. So, are you seeing that in the world, or what do you think's going on?
I mean, I've been through hell and back. So, as you may know aspects of the story, but I built my company to the point where we built the largest NLP training company in the world. At one point, we had the largest personal development presence in Australia, second largest in the UK. So we built up really big, did $100 million in sales of our coaching and seminars around the world. And then I lost everything. And I went down a kind of a dark path in terms of my thinking. I had a business partner that put in place documentation that said that I sold the company to him, which I never did. And he divested the assets and liquidated the company. But nonetheless, I went into this phase where I was lashing out at the world because of what I perceived to be mistreatment toward me. And I stayed stuck like that for 7 years. And as a result of staying stuck, like my life didn't advance. And so I think when we look at any type of shift, like what's happening right now on a global scale, if we think microcosm, macrocosm, I could get out there and get into the same thinking I was that stayed stuck, kept me stuck for 7 years. This person's doing that to that person, and what kind of conspiracies are out there. But in my life experience now, I realize that to the extent that I'm pointing the finger out there, it helps to keep me encased in anger and resentment and fear and all sorts of things. And like I said, I stayed stuck like that for 7 years. When I finally freed myself, it was because I looked at myself and I said, okay, well, what am I doing how have I contributed to this? How did I create this situation, either to my actions or my non-actions? And I got my focus off of what was happening out there and put it purely on myself. And then all of a sudden I was ameliorating myself and I was advancing, and I was able to advance my dreams again. And I was no longer a prisoner of my own states of mind and emotion. And so I really hesitate to look out and see what the globe is doing or what people in the world are doing, because from my perspective, it doesn't serve me as a being. And I'd rather be free.
One of the things that that you teach people and you've been really immersed in over the years is, these different sciences of success. And, like the picture that you've just painted is that the tools are valuable. They can move the needle. They can move you in certain directions, but we also have to realize that we're human, and, there's that, we have to integrate, we have to weave these together and have this understanding of ourselves. But what do you think are some of the most powerful tools that you've learned? Is it NLP? Is it is it quantum physics? What's been the most potent for you?
I think it's all valuable. I think that I always go back to, because I've been a martial artist all my life. I know Tyler Tolman out there does jujitsu. He and I would roll together when I was out there. For me, I keep going back to the same stuff. That it's like the attitude that I learned from martial arts, the idea of falling down 4 times, getting up 5, the attitudes of discipline, the attitudes of you just pick yourself up, you keep your spirit out of the gutter, you get your spirit up high. All of those things are the most important things, I think, when we're collecting tools of personal development and tools to make our life better, because you can have all the tools in the world, but if your attitude's in the wrong place with them, you're not going to be able to apply them. And So I would say those are actually the most important elements. I love the quantum physics. I love those ideas. I love the wealth consciousness and prosperity consciousness and the tools for breaking through things and realigning your values to rocket you forward, goal setting, to all that stuff is fantastic. And I still teach it all. I preach it all. But to me, it's the attitude with which we apply those tools. That's the difference that makes the difference. And like I say, we're in the ring of life, and we're going to get bloodied along the way. It's going to happen. We're going to have ups and we're going to have downs. And it's kind of a, it gives me a kick when you see the fresh people, the green people that are just new to the technologies going out there and saying, and because I was once there, it's like, well, when you do this, your life will be everything that it needs to be. Well, yeah. Okay, but when the rubber meets the road, now you got to deal with reality, and now you got to take all those tools and apply them to reality. And that's where that's where we really become who we're meant to be. So there's the purity of the idea of the tools, the philosophy, and then there's the real life application. And there's oftentimes a disparity between the two, because life fights back, life kicks back, and you got to respond to that and then make the tools work. And if you can do that, that's where you evolve into a powerful being from my perspective. What I was doing when I was 30 years old and I was teaching on big stages and had thousands and thousands of people, I was speaking, but I had yet to be tested.
One of the things you've worked with a lot over the years is wealth creation. I think one of your programs was Billionaire Boot Camp, and that's something that you've worked very, very heavily with people on. And I assume that that's because in most people's minds, when they feel like something is missing or, they're not fulfilled, they're not happy, that's pretty much, the first place people look is they feel like, I don't have enough, I'm not making enough money. And they think that, buying more things is going to be the thing. Now, I'm not disregarding that. I love money. It's an access to experiences. So I'm on board with the idea of, all of that work. But what do you think it is? What are the patterns that you've seen with the thousands, tens of thousands of people that you've worked with, that is the common kind of thing that holds people back from that? And is it the same thing that holds them back from all the other things in their life, like relationships and, career and business or whatever?
Well, I would say it's definitely our past programming and conditioning, because we only know what we know. Everything else we don't. Right? We only know what we know, but we are literally like sponges, especially when we're very young, and we soak up our map of the world, our unique way of navigating the playing field of life. And we typically will play within certain boundaries after that, which includes caps to our finances or no caps. It depends on what we were raised in and the beliefs that we formulated along the way. But there will always be limits. Einstein said that we're boxed in by the boundary conditions of our thinking. And so, those limits may show up financially, but they may show up in our relationships, or they may show up in our physical health. So we might feel very unlimited in one sense of life, and there may be other areas where we feel limited. So I would say, past programming and conditioning will limit us in that way. The reason why I created Billionaire Bootcamp when I did, and I created it more for me, I didn't create it as a training at first. It was a saturation experience, because it's been said that in life, we either pay attention or we pay with pain. And if we fail to pay attention to our relationships, we'll pay with pain. If we fail to pay attention to our physical health, we pay with pain. If we fail to pay attention to our finances, we pay with pain. And I had failed to pay attention to my finances, and I was paying with a lot of pain. And so I decided that I would apply the principles that I understood. And what I understood to be true was that if you want to accelerate your success in some area, find the person who's doing it, find the best role model of excellence you can, and reverse engineer what they did. And so I decided that I'd go out and model billionaires, break down their psychology, use hypnosis and everything I'd studied to install it in myself. And sure enough, it changed my life. I expanded my map of reality. I expanded the strategies to get to where I wanted to go by looking at these billionaire mindsets, how they thought. And I went from being 70 grand in debt to making, I think I did 600 grand my first year in business, then 3 million the second year in business, and it kept continuing to grow. Eventually, when I lost that business in 2011, my focus changed a little bit. So I wasn't as interested in studying the billionaires, obviously, because now I'm growing my hair long. I'm a hippie, so my focus changed. It wasn't about material creation anymore. It was more about fulfillment and who was I in relationship to the world and releasing attachment to all that stuff. So I did stop some of my modeling at that point. And then I've more recently brought it back on and looking at wealth consciousness. But I think now today I have a marriage of thought between the internal quest and the external quest. It's probably more balanced now. But I think there absolutely is a lot that we can learn by modeling the billionaire mind is when it comes to producing a financial result.